The #1 podcast in the world for growing your insurance business.
I'm gonna do whatever it takes. Getting it done, any means, get rid of these stakes. Now I'm up in my stakes, going all in like step, get rid of these breaks. Now I ain't never gonna break. Double my pace till I go down one of the greats. One of the greats, whatever it takes, whatever it takes.
Can't believe I'm doing this.
Having fun, so that's all.
We like the life.
Just gonna notice that you guys are live and you're not live.
There we go. All right. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast. Everybody that's here in person, everybody that's at home listening, welcome. Super excited to be with you guys today. This is episode 238 of the #1 podcast in the world for growing your insurance business. I'm Christian Brindle, joined as always with my co-host Glenn Shelton, and we have a special in-person live edition of the show. This is super exciting. For everybody that's here, thank you for taking some time out of your day for coming out and being with us today. We have a really awesome show planned, and these live shows are so fun. Like, we've done these a couple years now at the summit, and I feel like it's just a very fun, interactive way to kind of engage with people, both that are at home watching, but also people that are here in person. 5th summit, my friend.
It is 5 years in a row. And it is funny because we're talking about the podcast at breakfast this morning. And, you know, when you see like comments on the stream or you see like a number of people watching live, it doesn't have the same effect as you guys sitting here in the room with us. So I always love doing these too. And we want to get you guys involved, and we'll do some like Q&A or maybe grab some topics from you guys here a little bit down the road. But super excited about the summit this year. We have an incredible speaker lineup. I think on the last episode, we really went through that, so we don't have to go through every speaker again right now. But I couldn't be more excited. It's already been a flawless start so far. So super excited.
So funny story I wanted to start off with. Every time we do an event of any kind, you know, and Glenn and I will get together, whether it be the summit or whether it be something else. We always have people come up to us, and it's one of my favorite things personally, because it's incredibly flattering. People come up to us and say, I watch the show all the time. I listen to the podcast all the time. I listen to it when I'm driving. I listen to it when I'm getting ready in the morning. I listen to it at night before I go to bed. And, you know, I
make my girlfriend listen to it with me.
Yeah. And it's always so flattering. And like, I'll talk to Glenn about it, and, you know, we'll both kind of have a lot of you guys come up to us and talk to us about that. And it's ultimately the reason why we do the show, you know, because we want to put out good quality information that's helpful for your business. But Glenn will always say, like, I feel like no one's watching us. Like, that's consistently, he's like, it's always surprising me. He's like, because I feel like no one's watching. I feel like we're like literally just shouting into the wind. And I'm like, no, there's a lot of people that watch the show. It's a huge amount of people that watch the show. So, you know, really, I can't begin to talk about, you know, just how awesome it is that everybody takes the time to listen to the show. Okay, so first topic at hand. Would it be a 7 Figures or Bust podcast if we didn't get super distracted and talk about the finals for just a second?
I'm bummed because I'm trying to think if there's ever been a summit where we didn't have the finals actually happening during the summit. I think this might be the first time, because typically there's at least one game or multiple games happening.
Yep.
And we usually get to watch one together, or, you know, we go out and agents can all watch it. So I'm a little bummed about that. I was worried that this could end soon, and it did. Game 5, it wrapped one game early on us. Otherwise, we would have been able to see Game 6 tomorrow night. But yeah, thoughts on the end of the NBA season, the Knicks winning it all? What do you think?
I think that the Knicks just steamrolled everybody. They had one of the most impressive playoff runs ever after the first round. They struggled against Atlanta.
Largest point differential in NBA playoffs history. I think it was
Insane.
plus 287.
Insane.
Yeah.
And it's a feel good story for New York. I think their fans were kind of assholes. Throwing eggs at Wemby. Like, what's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? Come on. That's not cool. Be nice to our French friends.
Yeah.
But Jalen Brunson was incredible.
Yeah,
he was just amazing. I saw a post on social media today, actually, and someone was like, is Jalen Brunson a better all-time player than Allen Iverson, comparing little guys? And I'm like, absolutely, in my opinion.
I mean, it's early to make that distinction already, but what Jalen Brunson just did, I mean, that was a run for the record books for sure. I mean, everything that the Knicks just did. I mean, we both, I think, follow the NBA relatively closely, and I don't think either of us thought the Knicks really had it in them. I like the Knicks, and I still didn't think they had it in them to go that far.
They were kind of up and down during the season.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for a 5-game series, it felt like a very competitive series even still. And
It was.
You don't see that very often in series that end shortly like that.
Yeah.
Last year, to your point, Game 7 was going on during the welcome party.
Yes. We were,
at the Summit.
yes. 1 year ago today, we were picking sides. Halliburton tore his ACL, or his Achilles.
Yeah.
Sorry, he tore his Achilles. Otherwise, I think the Pacers would have won that game.
I think you're probably right.
If-
It wasn't going great
He
for
was
OKC.
so hot. It was so sad to see him go down.
Glenn and I made a routine every Summit to where we would wager something.
That's what I'm saying.
But before
how do we do that now?
well, we can't. But we, like, before we merged and became partners, we would wager on like leads.
Yes.
So Glenn would either give me and my agency leads, or I would buy them.
Yes.
That was the wager.
And I think I lost every single one.
Yeah, you did.
I think I've lost every single one.
And I would get leads and I would disperse them out to the agents and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
And I always looked forward to the
Yeah.
Summit because I'm like, another round of leads on the house. Now, they're my leads too,
Yeah.
so we have to find other things to wager about. But okay, so I have an interesting topic I wanted to kind of pivot
Do you
to.
want to get into the swag?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Let's
Actually,
talk
let's do that.
about-
Let's do that first.
Okay. So we did this last year, and I love this. So for everyone who's going to be attending, I don't know what the best way to get this on camera is, but
Yeah,
everyone who's going to be attending the summit, we do have a goodie bag for you. You'll get this at registration. Registration is happening
a little bit of an
directly
unveiling.
after the podcast. So it'll be right upstairs. We're on the first floor. Second floor, we'll have a table set up right near where the ballroom is, where the actual event will be happening tomorrow. If you were here last year, all the locations are exactly the same. But we wanted to go through and share some of the items that you'll be getting when you register. Of course, first and foremost, we have our new T-shirts this year. Shout out to the ESI team for the design. I think
They did so good.
possibly one of our cleanest designs. Yeah, I love these shirts.
Our shirts say "Fun Dad"
Each.
because we're always fighting over who's Fun Dad with the team. With having two separate organizations that merged, become kind of a running joke internally that all of our Utah in-person employees at the office, that I'm the biological dad and Glenn is stepdad. And then with all of our Filipino employees, Glenn is biological dad and I'm stepdad. And so we're always fighting over who's fun dad, who's lame dad. And they were gracious enough to label us both fun dad, which I guess takes the specialty of it away. If everyone's fun dad, then no one is. But that's neither here or there. But yeah, the shirt designs came out tremendous. This might be my favorite shirt design we've ever done.
Yeah, ours is long. The staff and ours, we have long sleeves, but yours will be short sleeves. So, and then
of course your badges.
Yep.
The badges come with the schedule QR code on the back. Every year, it is a battle to get people to understand what the schedule is. We can email it out, we can post it, we can verbally communicate it. Doesn't matter. We'll still get just littered with questions about it. So last year, we started doing this for the first time. We put a QR code on the back that takes you right to the schedule. So that was very effective last year. So we ran that back this year.
We have the technology.
We have the technology.
We have the technology, you guys. We did it.
Yes.
QR codes.
All right.
All right.
Jump into the
First
swag
and
bag.
foremost, last year we had a backpack. We have a tote this year. So a little different. It has both kind of a handle design. I guess this is like for over the shoulder.
Yeah.
I'm modeling this here. So
Little-
you could go over the shoulder, or
Little shoulder action.
and maybe it's a briefcase style tote, right? Maybe you like the short handles more. So two styles of how you can hold it here. You could be my Vanna White. You want to?
I'd love to.
Yes,
I'd
our
love to.
first
Um,
item here.
So, notebook. And everybody always wants to take notes. This is a great way to take notes. A lot of you might be even using AI note takers these days. So this might not be as necessary, but a lot of you are still old school and want to take hand notes. And so this is a really awesome design. Turned out really good for the notebook. We really, really like it.
It
Sure
was,
everybody at home can see
yeah,
it.
I don't know if it was 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. We did a notebook, but it was like this big.
It was really tiny. Yeah.
It was like what a detective would use, like in his breast pocket. He's pulling out, and I don't think anyone used that. So I'm really excited about this because that's the size where you can really take notes, or hey, if you want to doodle, you can doodle. How about our new 7-figure pens?
Seven-figure pens, 7-figure Medicare agent pens. Get that on the camera. It's not focusing. That's okay. You guys get it. It's a pen. It's a pen. No stylus.
Backup stylus pen.
And then,
So
yeah,
we
we
got
got one.
extras. So everyone's getting 2 pens.
One of our biggest debates internally is stylus or no stylus. And
Comment,
so we went with
comment
both.
if you're watching the live stream or the replay.
Yeah, let's pull the room.
Yeah, we're
Raise your
getting into
hand.
this right now.
Raise your hand if you're for the stylus.
Stylus versus really. That's shocking.
All right, now raise
to
your
me.
hand if you're against the stylus.
Thank you.
All right, the majority though. The
I
majority.
just don't
Silent
get the
majority?
To me, guys, the style. This is like early 2000s. Like I don't know. I don't get it. I
Thank
guess
you.
you're right. I guess
Thank you,
you're right.
Linda.
Well, I mean, I don't know. To me, I'm like, this gets in the way of the actual pen function for me, I guess.
Listen,
I
it
don't
gives
know.
you something to fuss with when you're in a meeting. Like, yeah,
All right. I can't go
it's a
against.
sensory thing.
Is
for
there
me.
anybody watching? Oh, a stylus. Oh my God. Stylus is coming in
Stylus
the chat.
is coming
too.
in the chat? Like,
If you're against the stylus, someone comment. I need support here.
this is basically our ESI team meetings. It's
Yeah.
everyone against Glenn.
I went out and bought this pen without anyone else's approval because I wanted something without a stylus
Approval?
this year.
You own the
That's,
company. You
whoa,
don't need
hey, it's
approval.
the team meetings, right? Everyone's
Yeah.
trying to vote, and I thought, oh, look how great these turned out, and everyone wanted the stylus. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
We got
well,
one
the
of each.
Debate's been settled. I guess.
We got one of each to
The debate's
account
been
for the 5% of people that don't like the stylus.
All right, we have our blender bottle.
Shaker cup, thicker bottle. These are so cool. They turned out great.
Yeah, they turned out really good.
This is one of my favorite items we've ever put in a swag bag. So these are great. If you use
Get your protein.
the
in,
protein
you guys.
shakes, this is
Get your
right up there.
our antibacterial.
Yep, our
spray.
antibacterial spray. For those of you that want to be cleanly, a lot of germs that spread around at these events,
especially from Christian.
especially for me, I guess, apparently.
And then we already talked about the tote. So again, kind of the essentials here. We're trying to keep
Mhm.
you on track for success. Reusable bag in the t-shirt as well, like we mentioned. So you'll get that at registration right
Yep.
after this.
So registration today is at 3:00 on the second floor, and our team will be ready to go. And yeah, you check in, you get all the swag bag and badge and everything else in between. So, all right, let's shift gears into topic,
Yes.
because I got a good topic for us to kind of start the show with. Now, granted, this is a 2-hour show, so we have a lot of fodder, a lot of things to fill.
Lester Kahn is in the building.
Lester Kahn in
He's
the
trying to
house.
hide back there.
Trying to
We see
sneak
you,
in.
Lester.
Yeah. So there's been a debate, kind of like a running debate on one of the biggest topics of conversation
Yes.
with Medicare agents for the past year and a half, maybe longer, of course, has been non-commissionable plans, right? Like and there's kind of like a spectrum of agent depending on what market that you're in and how concentrated in a particular market you might be. And there's agents that think, in my market, there's just a couple of non-commissionable plans I can still sell the bulk. And there's others that maybe got hit in like a market like a Minnesota, a Connecticut. There's a regional carrier in Connecticut that came out in the past couple of days that, came out and said that they're not recertifying any agents after the end of this year. So a couple markets got hit really, really hard. And so that there's that spectrum of agent that it's like, there's no plans I can sell. And there's no commissions and, and then there's everything else in between.
Yep.
So I got kind of curious. I'm like, is there any data out there about the actual percentage of plans that are non-commissionable versus plans that are? And I think when you have something like this that's going on, that's a little bit, dare I say, unprecedented, you have typically the doom and gloom crowd about it is really loud.
They're media,
really, really loud about it.
Yeah. Social media has given them this megaphone. So it's not that they're necessarily wrong when they're talking about their local markets.
Yeah.
A state like Minnesota, right, who got absolutely annihilated with non-commissionable plans. And then you have this agent where that's their entire business is based in just this one area, and they get handed a megaphone through social media, and all of a sudden it's everywhere, right? This conversation, this topic of non-commissionable plans, and is the future going to be 100% non-commission? I need to get out of the business. I need to sell my book. I mean, Christian and I knew some great agents who'd been doing this a long time. And when the non-commissionable plans got announced last year before AEP, they were jumping ship. I mean,
and in some cases, like selling their books for tremendously low values.
Yeah.
We benefited quite a bit from some of those. Let me tell you. Talk about 1X. And it's interesting because, it makes you think like, what's the truth? So from my perspective, Everything Senior Insurance is a national organization. We're a national agency. Yeah. So we kind of have a little bit of a view broadly across the whole country. So my perspective was it's the vast majority of plans in totality, right? If you're just talking about Medicare Advantage plans. And so I did a little research, AI pulled a bunch of sources for me. And while there's no grand, like one place you can look to for this, there's estimates that exist out there based off of the totality of the biggest carriers, and that information being public. It's a little tough to really get an exact number because you're dealing with regional carriers, you're dealing with certain markets, but the AI pulled about 15 different sources for me. From Talos Actuarial, CSG Actuarial, multiple different really good sources there. Jared Strock's company, shout out to him, does a great job. I'm a fan. And his actuarial company. And, from what it pieced together, it said that it's safe to have an estimation that you probably have somewhere between 85 to 90% of Medicare Advantage plans in the nation that are commissionable. And I would think if you ask the average agent that, they might be surprised by that.
I was surprised by it. I was surprised by that number because it does feel like more. But again, if you zoom out and you look at it from a national scale, I think that's the big difference. I think that the majority of plans are still commissionable. I think this is ever changing. That's part of the tough part too, is you have these plans that come out as non-commissionable and then they go away the following year. And so I think if you like were to grab the list of non-commissionable plans from the last several years, it might seem like a huge number, but if that plan ends up getting terminated and it goes away,
right,
that wouldn't be accounted towards this national average we're talking about.
Like how many plans came out as non-commissionable at the beginning of AEP 2024, during AEP 2024, throughout quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3 of 2025, that ended up essentially exiting the market. They turned into a SARS situation, service area reduction. And there's probably no like granular data that shows you exactly, but my perspective is I think there was a good bit of that. Yeah. And I think, are we going to see the same amount of SARS going into this AEP? I don't know. Seems like a lot of sources have kind of pointed to might not be quite as many, but there's still going to be probably a fair amount. And, you better believe a lot of those plans that are going to be exiting are plans that were shelved, that they don't want, right? What's the easiest way to move off of a plan that a carrier doesn't want? Yeah. Term it. And so I think to me, like, it's such an interesting thing to really peel apart and talk through because, there's agents that they look at it and they're like, the industry is dying. We're moving to a place where there will be a minority of plans even potentially that can be sold. And I just don't see it that way.
Yeah. So, we're known to speculate here on the show. We've gotten in trouble a few times for speculating, but
once or twice.
That's part of the game. That's part of being an armchair quarterback. So, based on what what do you think AEP 2027 looks like? What do you think October looks like? We get there. If you had a crystal ball in front of you right now and you could speak what you feel like is going to be happening, what would you tell the people today?
Man, I mean, this could age really badly because we're probably
you bragged
45
on the show
to
many times about your accuracy. So,
but no one bats 100.
Walk it back now. Don't try to walk it back now. Come on.
No one bats 100.
The live audience has them spooked, you guys. Nostradamus over here.
It's a lot easier when you're all on the other end of screens. Okay. No, I think we're going to be getting first looks 30, 60 days, somewhere in that time frame. So this take could age poorly, but what I would expect is I think we're going to get SARS. Yeah. Probably not as many as we got last year is my guess, but probably still a fair amount. So plans exiting areas. But I think broadly what we're going to see is benefits being pulled back. I think we're going to, on the Advantage side, I think we're going to start seeing dental, vision, hearing, ancillary benefits and the goodies. They're going to start falling off is my prediction. And we've kind of already seen that the last couple of years. I think it's going to be more of the same. But I think we're also going to see hospitalization copays rise in many markets. I think we're going to see maximum out of pockets rise in many markets because what we're seeing here is the Medicare Advantage plan structure. Everybody's dealing with the same thing. The plan structure that they've been operating with is built for a different type of model entirely. And if all of a sudden you have to rethink how all of that coverage works surrounding the drug coverage, what do you actually do? Do you rip the Band-Aid off all at once? Well, that's probably not sustainable. You have to do it little by little, especially when you're dealing with so many different markets, so many different plans. And, I think we're going to just kind of see a continuation of that. And I just think the Medicare Advantage plans, they're not going to be quite as rich as they were, which we talked about this on a show in the last week, favors the Med Sup, honestly. Favors the Med Sup. Now Med Sups that's a whole nother conversation here.
That is a whole nother topic. I believe we're really through the worst of it. I will go on record right now. Now that being said, there could be local demographics that still get hit or they get hurt in ways that are going to be completely different than how the national picture shakes out. But the best information that I feel like we've gotten and from our network and people that we've talked to and people connected to the carriers, like obviously this is a conversation that's happening all the time. But from a national scale, I genuinely believe we're through the worst of it. I think there will still be some chaos. I don't think the ship's completely been righted from some of the changes that we've seen, but that's the sort of optimism that, I'm holding based on the conversations that we've had.
And I think another thing that's important to point out in this conversation is understand this. And I think this is on both sides of the spectrum. I fully believe what I'm about to say here. the Advantage plan's benefits and the Med Sup premiums that we've been used to and accustomed to over the past 5 years, 6, 7, 8 years, they're done, right? Med Sups are going to be more expensive. That's going to be the new norm. And so in the interim, it's going to feel painful. Med Sups are in a place where I did a video about this in the last couple of weeks. It came out that the average loss ratio in 2025 was 86% on average for Med Sups in America. That was the highest percentage-wise of a loss ratio since 2006. It was a 20-year high. And what does that tell us? It tells us that our Medicare supplement plans broadly are underpriced. The premiums that they've been acting on are not sustainable. And so carriers need to raise the prices. And you're going to have two different types of carriers. You're going to have carriers that are either doing it now or last year and rip the Band-Aid off, or they're going to continue to deal with it and take those L's and take those losses temporarily, but maybe they're doing it to capture market share, but they're going to do it in 2 years or 3 years. Like every carrier is going to have pretty significant rate bumps. I don't think there's any way around that, especially on your plan G blocks, your plan N blocks, and everything like that. But a Med Sup in 96, the average premium was $70.
Crazy.
So people don't remember when a Med Sup was 70 when they were paying 170.
Yeah.
And in 2 or 3 years, people won't remember what the Med Sups were now, right? It's just going to become the new norm. And if you're dealing with a Medicare Advantage plan that all of a sudden it's normal for it to have a $7,000 or $8,000 or $9,000 max out of pocket, does that extra price on the Med Sup look so bad? No. In comparison, it might not, right? It's just the new norm for the market. It's price corrections to what things cost. And so, like, I guess where I'm trying to go with that, long story short, is the plans that we've been accustomed to, the richness of the benefits, like the jet skis, like it's not coming back anytime
Medicare
soon.
Jet skis and all these beneficiaries we're getting. Here's as we talk about this, I think back to when I first started to get involved in Medicare, which was literally about a decade ago, maybe 11 years ago. I really started to look into the market and be a part of it more. I feel like when there's stability in the marketplace, we all know seniors pretty well, right? Most of them don't like change, right? And I'm thinking back as we're talking about this right now, and some of the conversations that I would have with Medicare beneficiaries, they didn't want to switch. And you know what? Even if I could save them a bunch of money on their Med Sup plan by moving them to a G to a G with a different carrier, and hey, Mrs. Jones, I can save you $400 a year. Let's get this application going. A lot of them just didn't want to switch. Mm-hmm. So as you're going through, you're talking about all the disruption that we've got Med Sup premiums going through the roof. We've got these non-commissionable plans and plans being terminated, and like all of this disruption is causing seniors to want to talk to someone, and they either need to change or they want to change. It's easier than ever, I think, to have that conversation with a Medicare beneficiary because of the disruption. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's where I get so lost in this conversation. Here's the earthquake.
Yeah. I was just thinking that.
Everybody grab.
Was anyone here last year for that? I don't mean to disrupt the flow here, but like,
you ruined it.
I'm sorry. Was anyone here last year? And I'll talk about it off camera. I won't talk about it on camera.
But again, like when I don't understand this mindset of agents where they look at disruption happening in the marketplace and they're like, exit stage left. I need to get out of here as fast as possible, because it all points to being able to grow bigger and faster and to have easier conversations about, hey, Mrs. Jones, let me help you with your Medicare plan. Your Med Sup premium went up 30% over the past 2 years. You can't afford this anymore. Let me help you. Your plan's being terminated. Let me help you. Your PDP cost is through the roof. Let me help you. Like, I don't know. Disruption breeds opportunity. And I don't know how else to really look at it.
True or false? ESI had its best year ever in 2025.
True. And
True.
the year before that was
Yeah.
the best year ever.
True or false? Will ESI have its best year ever this year, projection-wise?
There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind we'll write more apps this AEP than we ever have.
But from the outside looking in, the sky is falling.
Yeah.
If we were operating under the mentality that the sky was falling and we're going on defense about everything and not being aggressive with our growth strategy, we wouldn't be capitalizing like we are as a company. And I think that's what separates the people that are really taking advantage of what's going on right now and the people that aren't. And the people that are selling their businesses they've worked 25 years for 1X. Which is fucking crazy to me. Sorry. Excuse my friend. Not in front of Linda. Not in front of Linda.
That's my favorite word.
But no, it's true, right? Like but like I've seen people that are in, industry leaders, not to throw any shade, but like being like, yeah, we're going to a place where more and more by and by there'll be less plans you can sell and and I'm like you don't even know what you're talking about, like that's just a damaging message I feel like for people to hear broadly and I just don't think it's true. I think if you look at all of the data and all of the information that's out there, I just don't think it's really accurate.
I think there can be a debate that happens whether this, is what's happening right now. Is this best for the Medicare beneficiaries? That's like this ongoing debate that I think makes sense to have. But from a business standpoint, as a Medicare agent or a Medicare agency owner, this is great. Disruption is great for you. And I feel like we've really beat a dead horse trying to explain this, but you can look at almost any industry. Whenever major disruption happens, the stock market's an easy analogy, right? If something happens and, there's a calamity, the pandemic starts, right? And stock prices come crashing down and there's this massive disruption. What happens, right? It just breeds a ton of opportunity, room for growth, room for people who may have been on the outside to be able to be on the inside now and take advantage of the opportunities.
Blood in the streets.
That's right.
Blood in the streets, right? Like
plug in your favorite Warren Buffett.
Yeah. I'm going to pull out some Warren Buffett facts for you guys. For the next 90 minutes, we're going to talk about Warren Buffett. But no, it's I can't even remember who coined the phrase on the blood in the streets. It wasn't Warren. There was somebody before him, but it's so true, right? When everybody else is bullish on something, that's probably the time when you shouldn't be, because it's more difficult to actually take advantage of the opportunity because everybody is on the bandwagon, right?
Yeah.
When everybody else is fearful of something, that's the time to come in and pounce. And that's in business, that's in investing, and it's a story as old as time.
It is.
And I think that goes to speak to the explanation, right? Like people selling their business or getting out or stop growing, or they're like, don't know what to do. Analysis paralysis the last couple of years with everything going on. That meanwhile with ESI, we've grown exponentially.
Yeah.
It's just a difference of mentality.
And not that we're alone in the growth tracks. I know there's a lot of smart and savvy agents out there who have taken advantage. It does circle back, though, to these local markets that got annihilated.
Yeah.
These really upset agents who got handed microphones through social media and however other means they can get their message out. And it really infected the industry mindset. It was crazy the last, before AEP, that 30-day run up to AEP last year. It was hard to log into any social media platform for me, because it was so toxic as an industry. There were so many agents who literally all they had to say was just pure negativity. Oh, this is it. We're not going to get paid anymore. This is going to be my last AEP. I'm getting my real estate license. I'm going to go sell houses now. I mean, I saw all of it. I literally saw all of it. It's crazy.
I would post something. I'd put together a post, be like, this is something we're doing internally that's been helpful. Just trying to put some value out there.
Yeah.
And I'd get comments be like, why does it matter if we're not going to get paid? And I'm like, fuck off. I'm like, and it just is so bothersome. It's so annoying. I'm pretty sure I booted a person or two out of the group because I got so upset. I got so triggered.
I'm sure you did.
Because I'm like, I just don't want to hear it anymore. Like, and it's the loudest people about it are the people that are just not in the know.
Yeah.
That's the other
The
thing.
other thing we've really narrowed it down. Anytime you see someone who's really loud about it, they're usually a very small time producer who's writing 5 apps a year, who happens to be maybe in a disrupted market and they're wanting to spread the message. Also the whole saying of like misery wants company, right? I mean, who hasn't heard that before? And I think that's so true, right? So you have, an agent that's suffering rather than trying to problem solve, which again, my opinion, I think it's really easy to get licensed in a different state. If your local market got annihilated, maybe pick up a couple other states near you. Maybe start selling over the phone.
I think that's a good pivot, right? Like,
Yeah.
because like, let's say you're in a position where your market did get hit really hard. Maybe this upcoming
What do you
AEP,
do?
there are an additional market or two that does get hit really hard. It's certainly within the realm of possibility. I don't think we're completely through this thing yet. And so, what actually do you do?
What do you do? You sell your book to ESI at 1x. That's what you do.
For 6 months.
6 months of commission.
Yeah. Action items. Everybody can go home. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I think for me, there's 3 things.
Ooh,
3 pillars.
look at you.
You like the pillars?
Yeah, I love it.
Like
3 is a good number. Let's go.
So number 1, you already touched on it a little bit. If you're in a market that's just been hammered, depending on where you are, right? Maybe you're in a really big state that makes sense. Maybe your business model is you're selling in person, face to face.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to go telephonic and sell in other places that within your state that you wouldn't normally drive to. Maybe it makes sense to get licensed in a couple of surrounding states and expand your horizons.
I love the region model. I think it's like, I feel like most people can group like 3 states and be like, this is my region.
Yeah.
Right.
Like for us, right? Like we could be in Utah, Idaho, and Colorado and be like, we're in the Rocky states.
There you go. The mountain. Yeah.
That's our region.
There you go. I mean, look, our logo. Our logo is the mountain. I'm telling you. Yeah. I love it. I love the 3. I think from the very beginning, I've always loved the idea of being in 3 to 5 states from a diversity standpoint. I think it safeguards you in so many ways.
I don't think you have to be in 20 states, 25 states, 30 states. Like a lot of people, when they think about that, they're thinking about selling everywhere. And certainly there's people that, are very good at telesales. They're running ads very proficiently. They're selling in a bunch of states. Not to say that model can't work, but I think for the everyday agent that's used to being the hero of their backyard and they need to expand, it's a little bit easier to expand in just a couple of places, some surrounding areas. And so that's the beauty, right? You can get licensed in another state. It's not hard to do. It's not very expensive to do. And that's one option. That's pillar 1. Pillar 2. And I almost even don't want to talk about this because I feel like it's become such a buzzword. I feel like we've been really talking about it since 2020 to an extent, but like bundling and cross-selling.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about it right now. Like every call center, every FMO, they're like, it's time to be bundling. But it's become a buzzword and I feel a little gross even saying it, but
sorry, Galen. I'm sorry, Galen.
not talking about her, not talking about Galen. But
Queen of the
you get us in trouble.
We love you, Galen.
So I think finding ways to sell other products and bundle with your main product is exponentially important. And let's break down the why. Okay, obviously you make more commission. Check, right?
Yep.
If you find yourself in a scenario where, let's say, you have a client that needs to enroll into a plan that you can't sell. That's our worst case scenario, right? The $0 commission. But if you're able to bundle them with a HIP, a cancer plan, maybe a DVH, like all of a sudden you're making what you might make on a med sup in some cases, in that first year commission. And, maybe next year around, there's a plan you can write them on or something changes, right? But in addition to that, the first year commission, we've all heard the studies. You don't need me to probably be a broken record. Your retention has been proven through studies that it just goes up through the roof. Your ability to retain somebody exponentially explodes the more policies you have in the house. Excuse me. Have anybody in the room heard my story about the bank teller and her PNC agent? Anybody heard that? Okay, good, because I don't like telling the same stories over and over again.
I've heard it.
Well, you don't count. So, it was about a year ago, and this really stuck with me. We have a couple carriers that won't direct deposit us. Jerks. No, we love our carriers, but they will not direct deposit us. We submit the form. We keep doing what they tell us to do. They're like, go in the portal, put in the bank. They won't do it. I've given up. So we compile some checks from a few obscure carriers. They sit at my desk. Once the pile gets big enough, I run them to the bank. And I hate that I even have to do that. But anyway, it's common enough where I got to know one of the bank tellers down there at our bank for ESI. And, so one day she's, doing the checks, and she's like, on our account, it says insurance services. And so she's like, what type of insurance do you do? Blah, 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 blah. So I'm just like, oh, we do Medicare, health, a little bit of life, blah, blah, blah. She's like, oh, I was wondering if you did PNC. I'm like, no, we don't do any PNC. And she's like, well, I was just curious. She's like, I have an agent. I've had him for a long time, like 15 years. And she's like, and I hate him. And that really caught my attention. That drew me in. I was like that's a pretty detailed word
pretty
there.
Strong statement about your
so
agent.
I'm like, you hate him? And I'm like, so I started asking questions. I'm like, why? She's like, he's such an asshole. He talks down to me. He's cocky. Like, just like ripping this dude to shreds. I'm like, but he's been your agent for 15 years. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, why don't you change? And guess what she said next? It's difficult. I have multiple vehicles. I have my home. She's like listing off all these things that he has policies on. And so what I walked away from that with was, even if your clients hate you, they might not change if you bundle well enough. Now, the goal should not be to get your clients to hate you, but
the other part of the bundling conversation, and I think part of the reason why this has become so front and center is because, like what you talked about, Medicare Advantage plans having their benefits retracted over the past, we've seen this year over year retraction of benefits with plans. So you're kind of, again, great part of disruption, right? They have a need because their plan might not have something like dental built into it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what can you do? You can offer them a dental plan or a dental vision hearing plan, right? And now not only do you have multiple policies in the house, but you're helping them with a need that they have that their main plan no longer covers. Plus you're getting the persistency, right? So it's a win-win-win all the way around.
So that's the second pillar, right?
Yeah.
Obviously bundling, cross-selling, and it could be ancillary products. It could be, some of you could benefit exponentially from adding life to your horizons.
Yeah.
Maybe you haven't done much final expense, mortgage protection. It's probably very easy. You're probably sitting on a gold mine.
Absolutely.
Someone's
writing that.
Yeah.
If you're not, someone's going to write life for your clients.
Every time we've picked up a book or we've purchased another person's book that didn't cross-sell any type of policy, take your pick. What we found through working with that book over time is a lot of those clients had those policies just other places.
Yeah.
It could be dental. It could be cancer. It could be hips. They have them through other places. Life insurance, certainly.
Yep.
Final expense. And so that's an easy one. It's a low-hanging fruit one because I feel like it's over-talked about almost even a little bit. It's like, someone's like, I don't know how to bring value. Cross-sell. And that's like the answer that's given. It's like, look, I'm bringing value, but that's number two. I think the third pillar for me is this one might seem kind of simplistic, but unless you're in a market that has no plans you can sell, there's not a lot of those out there. For the most part, most markets you have the majority of plans that you can sell. Just make sure you're doing what you can to sell what you can sell. Right? Like, don't be writing the non-commissionable plans. The carriers don't want it. There's so many problems with that. I could just go down the list, right? Like, and you wouldn't think that this is a problem or something that needs to be said, but it is.
One of the most shocking parts of the last AAP roller coaster was that the start, like I already talked about, where agents were like pitchforks and torches. I can't believe all these plans are non-commissionable. We're never going to get paid. Followed by the start of AAP where agents are like, yeah, I wrote 3 non-commissionable plans today. And it's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? You were just complaining all month last month about them. Now you're writing non-commissionable plans. Like, oh, it's crazy.
And in a lot of cases, right, like, we're getting to a point more and more where most of the Medicare Advantage plans in a lot of markets, they're pretty close, right? Like, how often do you actually run into a case where there's somebody that exponentially, there's one plan that is significantly by and far their best option and every other plan is a horrible option? It happens. Not to say that it's not going to ever happen, but wouldn't you say that there's probably usually most of the time 2 or 3 plans that they'd be just as good on?
Yeah.
So write the plans that you can sell. Right. And it sounds simplistic, but I think, you know, maybe their drugs are $10 less for the year on the non-commissionable plans. You know, maybe it's like something that different. And if you don't feel right about it, if you don't feel right talking to the client about it, what we've typically found is if there is a plan that is better for them, we'll typically disclose it to them, tell them, but also let them know that, hey, you can do this plan, but you have to do it on your own. We can't help you. And then also, you don't get to work with us long-term. This plan is very close. This plan is very similar. And you get us. And we have not had a situation yet where there's been a case like that where somebody chose to not work with us. And that comes down to, in your sales process, how much are you emphasizing your value as an agent?
So the third pillar is like selling med subs. Like selling things that are still commissionable? Is that what the third? No,
selling anything on that is commissionable. Like if you're running into Medicare Advantage cases, make sure that it is always a plan that you can sell. Don't ever be selling the non-commissionable plans. And if somebody's literally harmed by that, make sure to tell them, but have them self-enroll. Don't do it yourself. And of course, I think you could throw MedSups into that, right? MedSup for sure. I mean, there's so many agents that came into this business the last couple of years that they were Medicare Advantage $0 premium specialists. You know, and so I think making sure that if you haven't broadened your horizons and you're not really a true Medicare specialist and you're offering MedSup, that you should be.
Well, you just talked about how MedSups could be making a comeback.
I feel like even though it might not seem like it, they're getting more expensive than ever. The competition is getting worse than ever.
Right.
The Advantage plans are getting worse than ever.
Yep.
And
double-edged sword.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if we might see a world where it's not as common to see a $0 premium.
Yeah.
Or like the best Medicare Advantage plans in a lot of markets might be $20 a month or $30, $40 a month, you know? And they don't come with as much bells and whistles. The max out of pockets are much higher. So if a MedSup is 25, 30, 40% more than it was a couple of years ago, in comparison, it might still look like a fantastic option. I mean, what does the MedSup provide? The MedSup provides predictability and open access and ease of use. That is always going to be desired.
Yes.
In my opinion.
So there's a question here on the stream from Becky I want to get into. And then maybe after we answer this question, maybe we could kind of open it up to you guys and any topics or questions that you guys have. We could start to have that discussion too. So Becky's question here on the stream, if you're writing more MedSups, are you writing the PDP for them as well if all plans are non-commissionable? If not, what is your strategy?
Yeah. So at ESI, we are not enrolling anybody into anything non-commissionable.
Yeah.
if we're on the PDP, we'll figure it out for them. If they have the med sup with us, it's as a value add, and then we'll send them a tutorial video on how to enroll themselves on Medicare.gov. That's typically what we'll do. Now you might say, like, what's the big deal? You know, just enroll them. I talked to somebody, I think it was yesterday, that got a complaint, got an allegation for a
liability,
non-commissionable PDP.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with that, you know? Yeah. You know, and so, yeah, I mean, you know, and there's been debates on, like, you know, will your E&O cover it and things like that. That's a bit of a gray area. Yeah. I don't really, to be honest, I'm not an E&O specialist. I don't even really know the exact answer on that. I don't know if anybody could really tell you unless they went through a claim, because I've had situations where the E&O companies even contradict themselves, you know, on answering that question. And it's not really super clarified in the coverage. I've gone through that rabbit hole a little bit. Yeah. To me, the biggest thing is, like, we're not going to write non-commissionable plans.
Yeah, I think it's important to take that stance for the broker community. I don't think we want to send a message to the carriers that we're willing to work for free. And I think if we all start writing non-commissionable plans, it's sending that message. Oh, we don't need to pay you guys. You guys can basically become glorified ship workers for us, right? Volunteers who just will write these policies and service these policies without any type of commission or renewal. A lot of times, obviously PDPs is not a part of this, but a lot of times these are plans that the carriers do not want written with the actual Medicare Advantage plans that go non-commissionable. They're trying to get rid of them. You know, there's this whole debate about how some of these quoting engines were suppressing the actual plans. And the reason that was happening is because, again, top down from the carrier level, they don't want these plans written. And so why would you do that from a business perspective? Again, I've listed this off so many times before, but you're taking a liability, just like Christian mentioned a second ago, even with something as simple as a PDP, you're taking a liability by writing a non-commissionable plan. If you get found in trouble or a complaint from the carrier level or from CMS, then you're also not getting paid. Plus, you're sending a message to the carrier that it's okay to not pay. You don't need to pay me. And then on top of it, the carrier doesn't want that plan written. I think just taking that stance, whether it's a PDP plan or a Medicare Advantage plan that the person really needs and there's no other options for them, you just don't write the plan. You don't write it.
I would say 9 out of 10 situations, there's probably a reason that you can pivot into something else.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think it's every situation, but I mean, I think if everybody, like, lived by those 3 principles religiously, no matter where you are in the country, no matter what market you're in, no matter what situation you're in, I think you can grow and I think you can do well. I think there's something in there for everybody. And I think the majority of your competitors around you in your market are not going to do those things, and you're going to lap them.
I agree. All right, you guys. Well, hey, again, I appreciate everyone coming to watch this live episode. We're almost at the halfway mark, so I thought this would be a great kind of point to turn it over to you guys. Does anyone have any questions or fire away.
So are you sending them on the drug card? Obviously, it's non-commissionable, but are you sending them to Medicare.gov, going through that process, putting the medicine in, and determines which
say the question back.
So I'm going to repeat it if that's okay, just into the mic so everybody can hear that's watching at home. So the question was, if I got it right, was when we're doing the prescription drug plan for somebody with their med sup, are we figuring it out on Medicare.gov and then sending them to Medicare.gov to enroll? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, our team will figure it out for them if we have their med sup. So we'll run the comp. We'll have a recommendation of what plan they should do. And then we created a short tutorial video that shows people step by step how to go on Medicare.gov and enroll themselves into a PDP. So we'll tell them the name of the plan. We'll send them that video. It's like 3 or 4 minutes. And we'll tell them to enroll themselves. If they can't do that for whatever reason, we give them the phone number to the carrier and say, call the carrier. But we highly would recommend trying to figure it out and click the link and watch the video and follow the instructions, because that'll be way quicker. But that's kind of what we've been doing ever since the PDPs largely went non-commissionable. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, sir, Mr. Dan Maisel.
In the comments, and now you're here live.
Yeah.
That's like magic.
One of the things, so many things are transferable in this world, and we can use them, and it's worked very effectively for me, having been in business for a long time, is what they call the Swift method. Sell what's in stock.
Ooh, I like that.
So what's in
if
stock?
you're a company selling tires, you're out of that brand that they came in for, but you got another one here, you don't start telling them about how wonderful this brand is that you don't have.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think if we
Love
do
it.
that, all of us will win.
That is such a great point. I'm going to repeat some of that verbatim.
That's not
if
a
I'm-
question, but it's a great answer.
Yeah, so-
it's a great
So,
answer.
what Dan was saying to everybody in the home,
Yeah.
the home at home, was sell what's in stock, right? And if you don't have something available, don't talk it up, and don't prop it up.
Sell what's
Swiss.
in stock.
That's great.
I love it.
That's really
I
good.
love it. We could all benefit from that, for sure.
Anybody got any questions? Any topics you want us to kick around? Yes, sir.
Going back to the non-commissionable plans.
Yeah.
I know I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure how it transpired in Minnesota and Connecticut.
Mhm.
Did one go non-commissionable and the other carriers looked over and said, well, why are we going to pay if they're not going to pay? Do you see a snowball effect happening with one market, like I'm in central Pennsylvania near Harrisburg? If it starts, like one company pulls out, do you see a domino effect?
Sometimes, like I think in particular markets, my understanding of those two specific markets is they were very, very difficult from a cost of coverage perspective. And so, I know there's people here at the conference. I don't know if there's anybody in the room that's in either of those markets, but yeah, Steve, of course. He would probably be good to talk on this. But tell me if I got this right, Steve. Like the Minnesota market had challenges for a lot of years. It wasn't something that just popped up out of thin air. And so I think, it's a complicated thing to it as well, right? So like, let's say you have a carrier that has 30,000 lives, right? And they decide we're going to pull out. And it's in a challenged market already economically for a carrier to provide coverage. And they pull out, and let's say there's 3 carriers in the area still. Well, those 30,000 people are going to go where? To those other 3 carriers. And so that's a lot of business to be taking in all at once. And we're in a mode right now where a lot of these carriers, their profit margins, especially in certain areas, are razor slim. They're figuring a lot of this stuff out, and they're not prepared to take an influx of business like that all at once. It's a shock to the system. Now, let's say you have 3 carriers in the market, and one of them is just way better than the other 2. Where do you think the vast majority of those 30,000 members goes? Well, it goes into the best plan, right? And so a lot of these carriers are looking at it like, oh shit, this regional carrier is pulling out. We don't want to absorb all of these members. We're getting all these people on dialysis and cancer. And obviously there's no health questions or underwriting, right? MedSup, same thing, right? You just a guaranteed issue in that situation. You're just kind of absorbing it in. So sometimes it is a little bit of a snowball effect. And yeah, Steve, anything you want to add to that? Because Steve's in Minnesota.
Yeah, so I'm in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, and so we have 4 or 5 strong carriers. UCare left, and 158,000 people were left without coverage. So 158,000. That's
It's a huge,
Massive.
That's a small regional carrier by itself.
Yeah.
And we talked about this last night. I think the state of Minnesota very poorly, and Medicare, CMS, very poorly managed this carrier because their benefits were the scuba gear, the jet skis. They had way out of reality benefits. Of course, if you're a senior, you're going to take all that stuff. So all of us in the broker community, we have our meetings, our strategy, our game plan set up. And then, I could name them if you want me to, but, Blue Cross goes no, Medica no, United Healthcare was already a no. And there was only one carrier left standing. And that was the sell what's in stock. And I was able to kick booty for me based on my position with that carrier. But, you know, I did have some taboo where just because of certain, you know, care systems that were affiliated with the other carriers that were not with this one carrier, I did sell a lot of non-commissioned plans. I will probably set the record of anybody here at this conference, but I've also cross-sold those people.
Yeah.
I have also gotten the 65-year-old, you know, sons and daughters of those people.
Sure.
So I've made money in different ways, and I think a lot of us in Minnesota said, you know, we're going to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to do the right thing every year, but we're going to do the right thing this year, and that strategy paid out.
I think that's a great point, right?
Yep.
Like if you're in a situation like that, and I would call that unique, right? I don't think there's a whole lot of markets that encountered anything quite like that, to be honest, if any, honestly, because I remember when that announcement came out with UCare, and it was huge, it was big news for that area. And, you know, I think if you're in a situation like that and you find yourself in a scenario where you have to sell, I mean, maybe you have to do more non-commissionable plans, maybe you have to recommend more non-commissionable plans. I think finding ways to bundle, like we talked about, and then of course, you know, referrals always are a thing, you know, that maybe you can help somebody on a commissionable plan. I think that is the best outcome of it. But yeah. Does that answer your question? It's kind of, I feel like it's very market specific.
Yeah. I think we should kind of recap it for the online audience. The
Yeah, go for
audio probably isn't great for you guys. So, you know, the question was really, is this going to be a snowball-like effect like we've seen in some of these other markets? And it's kind of like a yes and no, because I think when a local market collapses, it is kind of a snowball effect. But at the same time, I don't think it's like a national snowball effect that we're witnessing. And I also think if it was, we would have probably already seen it pick up steam from what has been happening over the past couple of years now. So yeah, very unique situation, I think, in Minnesota and what happened there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you know, you see some markets too, like I think another one that comes to mind is like certain parts of Washington.
Yeah.
Where like, it's not very Medicare Advantage heavy from a penetration perspective. Certain areas are mostly med sup states, med sup areas, you know, like pretty rural and everything like that. So if you have a plan, let's say that exits and there's only med sup, well, then there's these med sup companies that have to eat and absorb all of this business from guaranteed issue perspective. So it's kind of a multifaceted thing there. Yes.
We live in a very rural California area. So we had a massive exit also, and we had to roll all kinds of people onto Medicare supplements. Now we're finding that the Medicare supplements aren't what they're doing. We're going to be like 1% commission.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys are finding that too.
Like on guaranteed issue business. Yeah. And I think like broadly on the med sup business in California, you don't really see that as much, but like in the broad perspective of things, like carriers have never really wanted guaranteed issue business, you know, like in our home state here, where we all are right now in Utah, nobody get licensed here. We don't need you. But no, we're full. No, but like, you know, guaranteed issue business out here, I mean, we didn't have a birthday rule of any kind until about a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was. And we don't even have a traditional birthday rule. Our birthday rule is somebody can only change on the anniversary of their birthday to a different plan within the same carrier. And it's guaranteed issue comp. And it's weird. I can't think of another state that's quite like it. So like you can't change from carrier A to carrier B. Just can't do it. It has to be from like a G to an N within the same carrier. But it's guaranteed issue comp. And if it's not already your client, with most of the carriers, you're not becoming AOR, right? So like if it's my client and you change them with the birthday rule, they're still mine, but I get guaranteed issue comp. But, you know, you're not taking that client away from me with a lot of the carriers. But I say all that to say here, guaranteed issue comp is really low, exactly what you're saying, like 1 or 2%. There's some carriers historically that like would pay a one-time $50 commission. and you never get anything else after that. So broadly, med sup carriers have never really wanted guaranteed issue business. And so I think in areas where they haven't been doing that as much and they've been more willing to take it, when they're seeing carriers exit on the MA side and they're absorbing all this guaranteed issue business, they kind of try to protect themselves by de-incentivizing the enrollments. So it's a complex phenomenon. It really is.
Let me tell you a story that I've heard, and this is kind of like once upon a time. I don't think this is something I've really heard recently, but I remember hearing back in the day a producer who was enrolling an incredible amount of new to Medicare business with one carrier, to the point where they actually ended up terminating this agent because, again, the same situation. From an actuary standpoint, if you take on too much guaranteed issue business in a certain area or in a certain plan, you could get slaughtered at the carrier level. I think this is the big thing that a lot of agents miss, is I don't think they're looking at it from the carrier point of view.
Mm-hmm.
They have blinders on and they're just looking at it like, I have a Medicare beneficiary who needs help. I'm writing the plan. I need to get paid. But, we've got to figure out a solution where the carrier can make money and we can make money and we can help the Medicare beneficiary. Have you ever heard something like that happening
Totally.
before, even with new to Medicare business?
100%.
Yeah.
Like they're bringing in, even in, perfectly reasonable,
Yeah.
New to Medicare scenarios, they're bringing in just a lot of sick people,
Yes.
undesirable membership.
Yeah.
And the carrier takes a look at it and they're like, all right, little Billy over here
Yep. See ya.
is a net negative
Yeah.
to the carrier.
Yeah.
So goodbye, you're terminated.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't say I've seen a whole lot of scenarios like that, but I've certainly seen them and heard of them.
It's unusual. I don't know.
No, I wouldn't say. I'd say probably not. For
Probably
cause.
not. Yeah. It's probably
Yeah, I
not
mean,
for cause.
yeah, pretty much. Like
Yeah. Go away. We don't want you anymore.
from a carrier perspective, I think Glenn brings up a great point. Like, as much as it's easy for us as agents over the past couple of years to beat up on the carriers and to point blame at the carriers, and certainly I think could the argument be made that in some cases, a lot of cases, that things could have been handled better, differently. I don't think any of us would disagree with that. But at the end of the day, though, this business only works if we are partnered with the carriers in a mutually beneficial perspective, right? And so I've kind of tried to look at it from that lens of like, how can we be good partners to the carriers? How can we be desirable to be partnered with the carriers?
Yeah.
Because without the carriers, none of us really have a career or a business. And, there's a lot, and I understand, there's a lot of people that are like, this carrier did that. This carrier did that. I'm so mad at this carrier. I get it. I understand.
I'm so mad at you.
But at the same time, hey, that carrier also paid for my house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to kind of look at it, I think, from that perspective. And I think as good partners, we should be looking at it from the lens of we should want the carriers to be able to make money.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm imagining what if I was running this carrier?
Yeah.
Right? Like what if I was operating Aetna? What if I owned Aetna? What would I do? Or whatever carrier you're dealing with, if you're having a problem, and try to really look at it from their vantage point, and then figure out how can you kind of navigate a solution. Another question, a follow-up question from Becky on this is, if you're having clients move to med subs and you're only getting 1%, are you going to have them self-enroll?
No, I mean, usually we're trying to underwrite them and move them to another carrier first.
Yeah.
Because in that scenario, that's on our birthday rule in Utah, I'm imagining moving them from a G to an N or whatever, right, within the same carrier isn't usually that much of their benefit, So it's, we're that's usually our last resort.
Yeah.
We're going to try to get them through underwriting with another carrier. Maybe if they're on a G, we move them to another G, lower their premium by $50, something like that. Now, if we find ourselves in a situation where that's the only way to help a client and we've exceeded all of our other options, then sure, we'll do it. But usually it's not even that helpful to the client anyway in our market, right? You have a way overpriced G maybe they don't even want an N.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe they're going to the doctor all the time. Maybe they, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Kind of a case by case basis.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Steve.
So if you were to, actually, let me rephrase that. What is your thought? I know you talked about this on previous podcasts. I mean, what does CMS think of us? in this? What do they-
That's a great question. Okay.
Lock the doors.
I'm
Someone lock the doors.
close the door.
What do you think they really think of us? Do they
Stop
think
the
that
stream.
we're
Yeah.
expendable or valuable to the system?
So
the question, I'll repeat the question here for the online audience, for if you probably can't really hear when this question gets asked, but the question is, what does CMS think about us as agents, as brokers?
specifically ESI. No, I'm just kidding. So I think you can kind of only guess from the outside looking in, unless you're like in those rooms, and I'm not privileged enough to be in those rooms. If anybody can get me in one, let's talk afterward. I'd love to be at those meetings, but I think if you gauge based off of their final rules, the last couple of years, their proposals, public statements that they've made, I think they don't understand what we do. I think they are largely ignorant to the broker distribution model. And I think there's multiple layers to that, right? I think like CMS, as long as I've been in business, has not really understood what FMOs do or what the purpose of an FMO is. Now, there might be people in this room that you're like, I don't understand either. That's a different conversation. But like, I think it all ties together because FMOs act as the middleman in a way to the carriers to getting agents contracted, certified, trained, monitored for compliance, help them be more productive. They serve at the end of the day as a net benefit to the carrier. That's why FMOs even exist.
Yep.
If every agent was direct to a carrier and you're all dealing with just your carrier reps, you think that would be good? I mean, maybe some of you are like, yeah, I love my carrier reps. Carrier reps are great. We love carrier reps. There's plenty of them that are going to be here. So I'm not trying to beat up on carrier reps, but I'm just saying sometimes it leaves a little bit to be desired from a support perspective if that's all you had. Right.
Totally fair.
And so I think to answer your question, Steve, my thought is I think they don't understand what we do. I think they are the constant skeptics of our value. And I think they probably broadly look at us like there's a lot of us that, help our clients and we sell policies, but I think they think that there's a lot of like notoriously bad actors. And I think that's what they think about more than anything else. Yeah.
There are some
Yeah.
that cause that.
Of course.
For sure.
Fair. Yeah, it's
For
totally
sure.
fair. Like but probably for good reason, right? Like a small percentage of people ruin it for the rest of us.
Yes.
Yep. And so I think that's probably my thought on how they view us. But I think it's largely just lack of understanding, which has always blown my mind because it's their job to police us. Like you look at a lot of their rules that they end up actually placing, they're placed with a call center perspective in mind, but they group all of us into the same bucket largely.
Yeah.
Right. Like look at what they came out with the definitions of like TPMOs over the years in final rules. Like how can you regulate a call center and little Billy going and sitting at the kitchen table exactly the same? It's madness. But so I think that's part of the problem as well. Yes, Steve.
So as a quick comment follow-up and a business idea for you two, you could have the podcast live from the doors of CMS. Just hang out there.
Speaker at the summit, Renelle Nolan, she
Should be the
is
one.
trying to get us actually to do a live podcast with someone at CMS. We'll see. I would be shocked if that ever happens.
I will say the language I think has been really clear though. The way, especially recently over the past even 6 months, I feel like I've seen a lot of language from CMS or other government officials where they're looking at the amount of revenue that is going to brokers and they're looking at it as a problem. They look at us like leeches on the system in a lot of ways, but similar to what you just talked about with, yeah, right, exactly. Well, it's similar to what you just talked about with FMOs and agents needing to be able to go to an FMO for support, because if all of us all of a sudden could only go to the carriers don't have the systems or the structures in place to support us directly. That's why the FMO model exists, right? Well, the same thing goes with the carriers in dealing with Medicare beneficiaries. There's 70 million Medicare beneficiaries. You're going to tell me the carriers can just be like, oh yeah, just send them all to us. We got them. Like, we're a necessary evil. You have to pay us.
Right.
Even if you don't want to pay us. Someone's got to handle these beneficiaries.
You think you can hold the fort down so I can take a pee break?
Yeah.
3 minutes? Can I get 3 minutes? Is
Yes,
that okay?
go for it.
All right.
Go for
Glenn's
it.
got it. Sorry. I'm getting old.
I thought there was a joke there, but no. Yeah, let's keep rolling. Yeah. Yeah, please do.
One is definitely get involved in NABIP, whatever in California, I mean, it's NABIP, whatever you get involved with, because meeting with your local legislatures and those kind of things help.
Absolutely.
But I think there's a change going on because commissions obviously they see some value, but the commissions continue to go up. I mean,
Right.
California now for next enrollments, $900.
Yeah.
Medicare Advantage. So there's got to be, sorry about that, it's here from Utah, I don't know what's that. California.
It's not.
For new enrollments, that's crazy. I'm not saying we don't deserve it, but
Yeah.
I mean, from 786 to 8 something to 900 in 3 years, that's with the benefits being cut.
Yeah.
So they do see some value. The agency I'm with, she's just been appointed to the Medicare Advisory Board. So, and she's heavily involved with Washington and state, and California state legislatures. So I would say get involved with NABIP and get involved with your state legislatures and be a voice to help make sure that they do see our value, because when they see our value, then
it's a great point. And we actually did a couple episodes ago talking about that increased cost in commissions, the increase that we all get depending on where you're at, what state. Obviously, California and New Jersey get more than other states. It's the cost of living. They try to adjust the commissions based on cost of living. It's like a 4.6% increase was like roughly the average across the board. Almost every year for the past like 15 years, they've increased that. So again, I think it was a great sign for those who think the industry is ending or that they're going to completely stop paying us. I think if you're seeing commissions go up and they're continuing to, follow this cost of living inflation, I think that's a very positive thing. I'm also a huge fan of getting involved. I think NABIP does some great things. We're obviously big supporters and we've endorsed HAFA. Renelle will be speaking here at the summit. If you don't know what HAFA is, definitely talk to her and make sure you catch her when she's talking her presentation. But HAFA has already gotten involved with some of the language when they're talking about how we're being discussed as agents and brokers, because again, stuff like kickbacks, that was a big one that got thrown around a lot. And the literal definition of a kickback is illegal money going from, exchanging hands. So to allude that we are getting like illegal commissions selling a Medicare plan is absurd. And, some of these advocacy groups have done real work to help us. And the reality is, like Christian just said a moment ago, I think a lot of people just don't understand who we are and what we do and, what the value is that we actually provide. So I think if all of us can get involved to some degree, even if it's a small amount, maybe you're just, donating a little bit, or maybe you're writing a, understandably, not all of us can go to Capitol Hill, but I think
Or can we?
Well, yeah, we march. We march.
Oh, do we need to spin up an advocacy group? Is that another one? Andy.
Yeah, so my original question was not just about CMS, but about Congress. There was recent legislation talk about our compensation.
Mm-hmm.
But Christian, you raised a question that I've always had, and it's about CMS and their oversight on agents. Like, where is the real oversight on agents? I think part of all of this is incumbent upon us, Because CMS just puts out these regulations that are very vague, and no one in the past had ever questioned them. But what real oversight does CMS have over a licensed agent? Like, we have no direct line to CMS.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? Because in general, it's kind of an interesting system, an interesting setup, because CMS passes the rules. CMS does it in typically legal jargon gobbledygook in the form of their releases and final rules and everything like that. They require teams of lawyers oftentimes to rip them apart and translate them on the carrier side. They're so vague that carriers can take the same rule and interpret them 10 different ways. So you might be breaking a rule with one carrier and following it with another, right? Yep. And largely, carriers have historically been in charge of enforcing the rules through their interpretation, right? And so when I say all that, what are you thinking? Mess, right? How messy, how crazy is this? But that's typically been the setup. Now, what we did see around like the no-call ACA time in particular is CMS stepping in and specifically pulling certifications, in some cases pulling licenses, because there was so much abuse. So they have the ability to step in themselves and directly do something when it comes to an agent if the activity is bad enough. They just historically haven't. They kind of rely on the carriers to do that. Because now the other thing to think about with this is like, I don't even know if this number is still super accurate, but it's not going to be that different. Years ago, I did some checking about 2 years ago for a pod, actually, we did. And CMS, okay, so CMS has, at the time, 6,000 employees. How many employees do you think United Healthcare has? If you had to guess. 150,000, 12,000, what else?
100,000.
300,000 employees. So think about the difference of infrastructure in the ability to actually enforce these things and police stuff and have departments for this and departments for that. Carriers infinitely have a better ability to do that than CMS does directly. That's another reason why they don't actually on their own police the agents themselves. They can't. They don't have the bandwidth, right? That's why Medicare Advantage even exists in the first place too, is because they don't have the bandwidth to provide coverage. It kind of all ties back to the same thing. And so I guess to answer your question on that, Andy, it's like, I look at it from the perspective of it's kind of a wonky backwards ass system. And you know, but like, it's the system that we have, you know.
There's also this like natural conflict of interest too, right? So you have you have CMS that will create a rule, and then they're passing these rules off to the carrier, and then they're basically asking the carrier, hey, can you enforce these rules? And then a lot of times if a carrier does enforce the rules, it might lead to a reduction or, you know, reduced volume in business that they're receiving from brokers or agents. So it's kind of this round and round we go. And then you have, you know, them trying to interpret rules in the easiest way possible for all of us to navigate. The one that comes to mind most recently with this whole topic is the call recording rules. It went right up to the deadline a few years ago. And we had carriers right at the deadline. It was like every single call must be recorded anytime you talk to anyone. Then it was only sales or marketing calls, you know, need to be recorded, not every single call. And it was just this mass confusion, and it wasn't clear. There wasn't clear guidance.
Too, like the other thing that's interesting, I think if you think about this and like, you know, Final Rule 2024 comes out, the mother of all final rules, that was essentially, in a way, had the potential to cripple the distribution model, right, of what we have on our space. The only reason that it went down the way that it did was because legal action was taken on account of Integrity Marketing Group, right? And, you know, they talked about this at Integrity Innovate. I was privileged to be able to be invited to a couple weeks back. I don't know if anybody attended that, but like, they had their leading attorney get up and talk through that whole situation, which I found fascinating when they went through that lawsuit with CMS. But like, that is quite literally the only reason why that final rule didn't see the light of day. But if you look at the domino effects after that rule dropped, it was so vague, so contradictory, impossible to uphold because nobody even knew what the damn thing said. Even carriers didn't know what it said.
Yep.
And so, like, that to me is the peak of what you get when you get that model where there's armies of lawyers, gobbledygook, and they don't understand the distribution model that they're policing.
Yep.
And then carriers have to pick up the pieces and figure it out from there. It's crazy, but it's government. What else would it be, right? If it wasn't.
Yeah.
Peter.
So
PJ.
There's these articles coming out lately about Social Security and Medicare fiscal crisis in 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any input on that? I mean, do you guys see it impacting the Medicare space?
It's a great question. So
Repeat that.
Yeah, so there's been, so I'll repeat the question for anybody that didn't hear it. So there's been a lot of reports coming out lately. I've seen them too. You know, the Social Security, Medicare, the trust fund will be essentially insolvent by, what is it, like 2032, 2033,
yeah.
something like that.
7 years.
So it's a little bit complicated, right? Because Social Security and Medicare have two different things going on. They have the trust fund, which is essentially the collection of all funds that they've gotten over the course since the program started. And then they have money that's being paid in through working people, FICA taxes, Social Security, Medicare, from all of us, everything like that. Although we try to get ours down as much as possible.
Legally.
We try to legally get it down as much as possible.
Yeah.
Zero? Can we have it as zero? No. But anyway, so the whole story with that is that from what I've read, is that it's projected from trust fund experts, aficionados, that it'll be dry, insolvent by that year. My thought process on that is, I think they'll find a way to fund it. I feel like there's been plenty of times throughout my life. So I kind of have a unique perspective on a lot of this stuff because, you know, many of you know, my dad was an agent for a long time. You know, my dad was an agent before I was even born. And so, you know, I grew up around the industry. Anytime there was a scare or something like that, it was felt in my household. It was talked about at the kitchen table when we'd have dinner. My dad at one point was so spooked about Hillary Care in the 90s that he went and got his PNC license and he was a farmer's agent for like 3 months. True story. And then he was like, this is for the birds, went back. And at that point, there was a managed care plan similar to Medicare Advantage in many places in the 90s. It fell apart with the government. Everybody got termed. And my dad, like 10x the size of his business in like 6 months because all these people needed to change. But like 6 months before that, he thought he was going to be a PNC agent, you know, because he was afraid of Hillary Care. And so I say all that to say, I've grew up around our industry and there's always a boogeyman.
Yeah.
There's always, okay, I've heard a lot of projections over the years that the trust fund would be dry by this year, that year. And then the year comes and goes and I don't hear anything about it anymore. They find a way to fund it or they pull funding from this or they redistribute the budget or something like that. Like I guess I've become a little desensitized to it, you know, because from the time I was a kid, I remember being like 10 years old and there was something going on, you know, that was like a big scare. I remember being like afraid. I'm like, oh, like, is dad going to lose his job or anything like that? Like, so nowadays as a full grown adult, I've been doing this myself for 12 years. I've seen a lot of it in my own career as well. Most of the time, these reports end up being false evidence appearing real, fear, right? It just ends up being a lot of noise. And so could it happen? I guess. I mean, do we have a way to peek into the trust fund budget ourselves and kind of see what the reality? We don't. We just can based off of what studies come out. But like, it's not the first time somebody's made that prediction. And we're all sitting here right now.
Yeah, that's the only thing I would add to that is really just echoing some of the same thoughts you just shared. I haven't been in this space nearly as long as, you know, you have, especially when you include your father's time in the space and how far back. I mean, you've been exposed for such a long time, but even in the shorter time that I've been exposed, I feel like this has come up several times, that it's going to be defunded, or we're going to run out of money for Medicare and Social Security. And it seems like they've crossed the hurdle enough that it would have to be an impending doom, like happening next month, for me to really. And even then, it's like they'll probably figure it out. Like,
right.
They how can they rug pull, 70 million people and say, hey, no more Social Security. I was just talking to my neighbor a week ago, and she was telling me how that's all the money she has is what comes in her Social Security check.
Think about this too, right? Like, one thing that's become very exposed to mainstream attention spans over the past maybe year is the medical billing fraud.
Yeah.
That's just rampant, right? Like, look at the Minnesota, everything that's come out in Minnesota. I'm sure it was no surprise to you. Nationally, it was a surprise to all of us, right, that don't live in Minnesota. Peter, a lot of stuff in California, right, it's come out, like from hospice.
Billions.
Like, we're talking God knows how much billing that's going out the door, right? Like, and largely, I think if the fraud billing and the fraud payments were cleaned up, how much longer does that trust fund go if nothing else changes? Could go another 20 years potentially, right? I don't know what the number is, but it's so you got to look at that too. And like, one thing I do like that I'm seeing from our current CMS is it seems like they're really going after that stuff. Some people say it's politically motivated. Maybe it is. I don't know. But like, it's one of those things that, like, cleaning up fraud is not bad. It's never bad. There's no bad outcome that comes from that. And I think for the trust fund to continue going, they got to stop these fraudulent payments going out to nefarious shell companies. Just can't happen.
I just realized I left Mehmet in my room. I brought Dr. Oz with me.
He's here.
Guys. He's here. He's in the building, but I was going to bring him down here for the pod, and I just forgot. Sorry.
That's okay.
He'll be here though. You'll see him.
You're going to bring him on stage?
Yeah. We'll see
God.
Somewhere. He'll be here.
25 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Take it
off. Yes.
I have a question, going back to like when you talk about non-commissioned plans. I think there's a very big break in this industry of people who do it for the community-based, like service-based, just depending on like what your sales background is.
Mhm.
So like say things you're doing them because you're looking at the future of like their kids who turn 65. Like, have you ever seen these plans go non-commissioned and circle back around, or they always end up changing in some way that you are ending up writing them in another plan? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. I mean, I think with non-commissionable plans, for one, they've always been a thing. When I got into this business in 2014, there was non-commissionable plans. There just wasn't a lot of them. A lot of agents don't even know that, that they think there were not any non-commissionable plans go back 3 years back and they didn't exist. No, they've always been around. And it kind of depends, right? Sometimes there's been non-commissionable plans. Like I remember there were some in Florida when I lived in Florida almost a decade ago. And there was like one in a county. And I was like, what? What's this? That was the first time I ran into one. And I remember my carrier rep at the time was like, yeah, I just don't worry about it. Like, it just sits there. And it sat around for like 3 or 4 years. And then eventually it termed. A lot of times they just sit there. And what on that plan in particular, every year the benefits just fell off a cliff.
Yep.
It just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And then they finally termed it. Yeah, that's usually what it comes down to. But like, now the question becomes, why don't they just term it? Why do they keep it around? Why do they keep a plan around that they don't want? Well, it's because it's a very complex thing about the actual steps that need to be taken and also the impact the carrier that has happened to them the more they term plans. It affects their star ratings. It's better for them in some cases from a star rating perspective to keep a dead plan around and just hide it. CMS punishes them more for terming too high a percentage of plans, right? So that's another thing, like tying back into Andy's question earlier, like the backwards ass system, right? The carriers are playing by the rules that they've been given. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. They have a lot of people. Maybe it's economically sound if they just don't have any new people enroll, or very few new people enroll, or something like that. And they can kind of deal with it for the time being, might not want to lose that block of business. And so now we've never had this many non-commissionable plans in the MA space that I've seen since I've been doing this. So I think it's a little bit of uncharted waters in terms of like where we go from here. But I think even if you look at what's happened the last 2 years, right? A lot of plans that went non-commissionable, they didn't just stick around too long. A lot of them pulled. A lot of them termed pretty quick, as soon as almost they could. And so I expect there to be long-term, maybe it's not this year, maybe it's not next year, maybe it's the year after, terminations, and maybe there's some that term this year, there's some that term next year, there's some that term in 2 years. I think they'll phase out. I think you've seen some regional carriers that will cut benefits and recommission a plan. You've seen that in a small sample size. So it's possible, right? Yeah, I think what the carriers are trying to do on a lot of these blocks is they're trying to reach stability. Steve, yeah.
I'm sorry to keep asking questions.
No, don't be. Don't be.
While you were taking a potty break, Ryan actually had a really good comment. And so, we've got a CMS increase of 2.5, 2.4 for the carriers, but then we see a quote 4.5%.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly they're not talking to each other. What's going on there? That's a weird dynamic.
I think this is just my own theory, and I don't know if you did you already share your thoughts on this?
No, I was just talking about how a couple episodes ago we got into the cost of living inflation that is being applied to commissions.
Yeah.
Because that was something that had come up, and how, it is this weird dynamic of like, there's this, perspective of we're getting paid too much, or we shouldn't even be getting paid at all. But then at the same time, they're turning around and like, here's an extra 5%.
Right.
And now, there's another layer to this where the carriers aren't getting increased as much as we're getting increased.
I think we are in a very hyper political. We're caught in the middle of a hyper political battle that involves health insurance in our country. I think a lot of it has to do with that. So I think there's kind of two things, right? Because a lot of the things we're dealing with were kind of coming out of the Biden administration. The Biden administration's CMS was on a warpath. We all agree on that? Like, they were on the warpath. Yeah. They were radical, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that to be political. I think it's just, the final rules every year, the rules were just insane.
Strangulation through regulation.
But they were taking the approach of actually pretty healthy commission bumps for us. If you look at what they raised our cost of living, actually wasn't too bad. It was actually pretty nice. And their funding for the carriers were pretty good too. Like, they were actually delivering in what's favorable to us and the carriers in that regard. Where they were strangling us was on the regulation and the additional rules and making it more difficult to do business. Then you have this changing of the guard where Trump administration comes in, the Oz administration for CMS comes in, and they're almost taking the opposite effect, cutting regulation, but also cutting additional funding. And I think there's this pandering because, the Trump administration very clearly wants to do away with Obamacare. Like, that seems to be kind of like what is being duked out, by the powers that be. And, they want to change it. They want to save money on, they want to save money on funding for it and on subsidies. So they cut the funding. They have these COVID subsidies that got expanded all the way until the end of 2025. And I think broadly, anything that has to do with health insurance companies in America gets sucked into this. Yeah. Oh, well, the broad public is probably blaming somebody that now my health insurance is so much more expensive. So let's blame the big, bad, evil insurance companies. And I think it's, been all kind of sucked into that kind of focus. And then, what goes great with that type of messaging? Insurance salesmen getting kickbacks. There's videos coming out from the White House, and Trump's saying that we're getting kickbacks. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And regardless of like what party you're for, there's nothing about that. It's not partisan. It's like that type of messaging, regardless if it was Biden saying it or regardless if it was Trump saying it. Like, I don't want the presidents telling the American public we're getting kickbacks. I'm like, where's my kickbacks? I'm like, I'd love some kickback. Can I have some kickbacks? I'm like, do you mean my commission, my servicing fee for servicing a client? Does my electrician get a kickback when he fixes my stove or something? Like, maybe so. Maybe if he's quick. But no, like, so I really do think a lot of it is this weird kind of like, we're caught in the middle of, the two parties colliding on this ever complicated issue of the ACA, and everything that has to deal with the carriers gets sucked into it because the public perception of that is naive. Public perception doesn't really understand the difference between all this. So anything that can be used as political fodder or ammo is thrown into it on both sides. Yes. And so, then CMS, is a certain, Oz is appointed by the president, right? CMS administrators appointed by the president. So, they're trying to, they think it'll look good if they're making it look like they're cutting funding for the carriers, the big bad insurance companies, so they propose a 0.09% increase on the funding, right? That reads good. It's a good headline. Yeah, give it to them. Those big bad insurance companies, like, it's all, in my opinion, tied to that political fodder. It's bullshit.
We are at the center of this tug and war between right and left. Health insurance has always been this like key issue. And I think because it has become a hyper political climate, a lot of times it causes the tug of war game, I think, to become even more disruptive, so, and we're kind of just caught in the middle. We have to just kind of put up with it to a degree.
Yeah. So I kind of a long-winded answer on that, Steve, but like, if that makes sense, that's what I really feel like is going on. I think it's like,
grab the headline, get the soundbite.
Yeah. Like, let's make the insurance companies the bad guys.
Yeah.
Let's deflect blame.
Yeah.
Got to blame somebody. Yeah. Might as well be us and the insurance companies, right? And the carriers.
We got time for a couple more, you guys.
Yeah, a couple more questions. Yeah, this has been great.
Anyone else have any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
Fire away.
Hit us.
Do you, in your perspective, think that CMS ever created Medicare Advantage knowing about the problem of the funding in the future and privatized Medicare? I potentially could see the original Medicare side just going away and then just changing everything over to Medicare Advantage and then reducing the funding and then making it a private pay system, basically, federally regulated. I mean, do you see that as a possibility, or?
You want to take that one?
There's so many possibilities that I feel like we constantly either hear about it. It kind of goes back almost to like the defunding question, right? They're like, there's all these radical possibilities that, you either hear about it, like all sorts of things I think are possible. Like we could end up in a one payer system, but to me, I always go back to the likelihood, right? Like what is the probability of something like this happening? I think the most likely outcome whenever there's the type of disruption that we've seen and we continue to experience seems like it's more of small changes versus these radical changes that could happen. So it's not to say that like some type of radical change couldn't happen. It definitely could. And I think there's even maybe examples you could point to historically where like radical changes have happened. I just think the most likely thing is that you'll continue to see small changes rather than one big radical change. minus something like an extreme progressive getting elected into office. That's the type of thing where all of a sudden now, maybe.
I just look back at the underlying reason. Why did they ever create Medicare Advantage back when they first did it?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on
Yeah.
I have some thoughts on this. So like my personal opinion is I think in a perfect world, CMS would prefer managed care
Yeah.
exclusively.
Yeah.
It's
Helps with abuse as well.
Yeah.
It's
Like-
cheaper for them.
let's face it. I've said this for years and I've had people get mad at me for saying this in the past, but I do genuinely believe it. I don't think the government's good at being a health insurance company.
No.
And I think health insurance companies are great at being health insurance companies. Government is slow, inefficient. Some people might even say dumb in some cases. The carriers are everything that's the opposite of that. Carriers are smart, they're efficient, so I feel like that is where CMS would like things to be. I think and I do think there was probably a thought, years ago, or maybe like an agenda years ago to like long term, that would be the model to phase out original Medicare. And maybe it still happens. And we just see nothing but managed care plans. I feel like this disruption we've seen on the MA side is so substantial. I think it swings people a little bit more towards original Medicare than if we were going. And so but that's the thing though, right? If the CMS wants that, why pass things that will directly go against it? It's government.
They don't even understand it.
They don't. Yeah, they don't understand it.
Understand
it. People that pass legislation don't have a very high understanding of actual.
Look at the title of the Inflation Reduction Act. This sounds great, right? Like who doesn't want inflation to be reduced, right? Like let's go, but like beyond that, do they even really care? Like I passed the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah, I'm watching I'm not saying this because I'm trying to go into a political. I'm just like, but I would be watching the debates, and that would kept coming up like we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, and it did this and that, and I'm like screaming at my television. I'm like, nobody understands what this thing even is, But like, for me, I think that's where they'd like to go. I don't know if we'll get there anytime soon because they get in their own way.
You think that's an idea that
Sure.
they originally had when they created
Yeah.
that thing, so.
And I think it's an interesting thing because prior to Medicare Advantage, there was largely original Medicare and Medigap, right, and MedSup. So,
Wasn't even
and-
drug costs.
yeah, right. The discount coupon cards at the time or whatever, right? Like, so you had people, and now it kind of became to a place where they wanted to have both options available to people, and they never got to a place where they could just completely put the nail in the coffin for original Medicare without there being just massive outrage. I feel like, and who knows, right? Maybe I'll be wrong on the MedSup side. I just feel like MedSup, it has a chance of making a comeback because of what's going on. I think even though the prices are higher, I think the overall benefit still remains and Medicare Advantage is weaker. And I think MedSup looks really strong, I think, in for the future in that regard. Yes.
Looks great compared to what they pay on the ACA if they don't qualify.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm going to repeat that just into the mic if that's okay. So it looks great based off of what people pay on ACA premiums. That's 100% right. And there's less people getting subsidies than ever. The premiums are higher than ever. So, like if let's say in a market, a MedSup for a T65 was 170 or 180 this year, and in a couple years it's 230 or 240. Is that anything compared to an ACA plan without a subsidy at 64? Absolutely not, right? It looks like heaven. And you have a $283 deductible. Maybe it's 300 in a couple of years, right? Whatever it is. Yeah.
Yep.
And you don't have a network. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I think people see the rate increases right now in the MedSups and they're like, okay, this carrier is going up 25%, 30%, 35%, 40%. But that's not, to me, going to be a yearly trend. I think it's a correction.
Yeah.
on getting the price. We have
Pendulum swings.
underpriced med subs correcting their price, and then will we see 3 to 5% rate increases after that? I'm not so sure about that, but are we going to see 20 to 30 to 40% every year? I doubt it. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
And inflation is affecting that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Out of your 234 episodes, is that what it is?
238. 238.
You're within 4.
Have you ever done one just on Irma? Have you ever done a podcast on Irma?
I have on the Everything Medicare podcast. I don't think we ever have on this show. So Everything Medicare podcast, for any of you OGs that have been following me that long, was direct to consumer podcast only. I started it in 2018. And that one has, I don't know how many episodes, 350 episodes, something like that. This show, the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, we've never gotten super deep into it, but we could at some point.
So can I shift gear real quick for you? And
Sure.
just
Sure.
in case
Fire away.
client, I think Irma's broken because we had a client that sold real estate, so they have capital gains on that real estate, and because my client looks at the 2-year post, they automatically increase their Part B premium.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody, do you know of any way to get away from that? Because I've had a couple clients, and I have one right now, I have an agent actually texting me, how do we do this? So I'm like, well, let's find out live right now. How do we do
Sure.
this?
So how do you get out of an IRMA, basically, right?
Well, for the sale of a property.
For the sale of a property.
If you sell a property, you have capital gains on it.
Yeah.
It automatically triggers for that year for income. So anybody has
Yeah,
a
it's-
case before. I've had it happen twice, and I couldn't get them out of it.
So you can appeal an IRMA, but I don't believe that's a situation that you can. Um, Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So
Only if the income's down.
yeah, that's the thing. The income has to be down, and
If you're a real estate investor and you sell property like
That's
one
it.
of our clients,
it's recurring
they
income.
sold their last rental and they were after 65 and they got hit with Irma.
I'm
They got shut down because it wasn't their primary home.
I'm
Yeah.
spitballing on this, but what about an irrevocable trust? What if the home was in an irrevocable trust? Would that potentially still
Mhm.
goes towards your income?
You put it in. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I had a client like that, and I sent him to a colleague of mine who's with Edward Jones, financial advisor. He somehow worked the numbers down and was able to pass it and lower his earnings. So,
Get them out of it.
yeah.
There you go.
How he did it, I mean, I'm not a financial advisor, so.
With whiteout and a pen.
This didn't happen.
You made 800,000. You mean 80,000. Whiteout is 0. Yes.
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 I explain to my clients, I can't explain the whole inflation, but how it relates directly to them as a Part D participant. 5 years ago, they could have paid up to $30,000 for drugs. Because of the Inflation Reduction Act, that came down to 50, then to 8, and eventually to 2,000. So yes, I can explain how the Inflation Reduction Act affected them, and I think we all should be able to do that as it relates to our
Well,
Part D clients.
Some of that
Well,
is
significant.
carrier.
Yeah. I think I read a study on this, on the percentage of clients that was paying over 2,000 on their Part D before. It's 8%, 9, maybe a little bit less. So
I can't
for-
say the same for my clients. I can't say they paid 30,000, but there was a significant number of them that paid over $2,000 for their medication.
I think I think if you take a small sample size, you can point out cases where somebody saved money. No doubt, right? People that were paying large amounts for their prescriptions. Yeah, we all dealt with clients like that that were spending $10,000, $15,000 on the best drug plan possible. They're utilizing every patient assistance program they possibly can. They've gone down every rabbit hole and they're still paying a ton of money. Those people saved money. Well, the way I always explained it to our clients when it first came out was, and our company did, is if you were paying over 2,000 for your prescriptions, and nationally the data's there. It's less than 8% that were on the old model. If you're paying over 2,000, you saved money. If you're paying under 2,000 for your prescriptions, you're paying more in everything else, and you have a worse plan. So it's one of those things where it's like it was passed, I believe, with good intentions, and I think it did help some people, and it was a problem for sure. The uncapped Part D costs was a real problem. I don't think any of us would argue with that. But I think it was passed in a way that either they didn't care or they didn't understand the domino effects and the ramifications largely on the plans that surround the Part D, right? Because I remember the day that it passed and I went through it and kind of, did my best to kind of digest it. I was like, I remember talking to you on the phone.
Yeah.
I was like, this is going to fuck the Medicare, the plans. Yes.
I disagree because millions of people on diabetic supplies and medications went without during that period where it was unguarded. And I had clients who shared medication, got it from other people.
Oh,
so
geez.
it is, just in my opinion, it was significant, and I just don't want that to be overlooked.
Sure. I mean,
we all want those people to be helped. I don't think anyone in this room doesn't want those people to be helped. I think how they got helped.
I think you're misunderstanding kind of what I'm saying here, and that's fine. We can agree to disagree. My overall point is a small percent. The minority was helped, and the majority was hurt in their benefits. There's no disputing that. The numbers are clear, and I think it was great that those minority of people were helped. I think it's great. Like, we have clients that were spending, like I said, $15K a year on medications on the best possible plan. Now they're not. Terrific. I love that for them. But it doesn't mean I just am going to ignore
how it harmed
95% of our clients that have worse coverage now that weren't paying that. That's all. That's the larger
consequences, right? The unintended consequences of the inflation.
I think a fair way to position it is it had some positives and negatives. I mean,
that's the way I explain it to my clients. Is twofold. It's great for you because you're going to save money. Not so great for the insurance companies and what's happening to them. So now those that don't have your cost are paying the benefits.
Yeah, I mean, there's clients that were helped. Yeah. I don't think you can. I don't think you can dispute that, and I'm not trying to do so. I just think when you're talking about kind of where the industry's at right now and why so many of the domino effects we're seeing with the plans, a lot of it is tied to that. It's not all that, but it's a part of it.
I mean, it's
a piece of the puzzle.
If you want to point fingers at someone, you can point fingers at the pharmaceutical companies, right? The pharmaceutical companies have markup on some of these drugs that's just, insane, 600,000% from their cost to manufacture, but they sell it at the price they do because they can, right? I mean, but unfortunately, we are at top of time, as we typically say here on the show. We've made it to the end of our 2-hour special live episode here at the summit. Mr. Brindle, final thoughts on episode 238 of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast.
Well, after I drained the lizard, it flew right by. No.
Get me out of here, please.
No, that was. I think that was a great conversation. I think we were able to cover a lot of topics, and I love doing this when we have people that are watching at home, people that are watching in person. Just so much fun. Appreciate all of you guys for taking the time and coming out and being here for the summit. We can't thank you enough. I mean, I know I never take for granted what it takes, not just from a financial perspective, because you have to fly, you have to get a hotel, everything that comes with that, but also being away from your families, being away from your businesses, to come out and be with us. And I know that we never take that. I never take that for granted. So I'm so glad to be with all of you for the next couple of days. And I'm so excited for the rest of today, tomorrow, Wednesday. Like, I'm pumped. I'm so excited. This is my favorite time of the year. It's like we throw a wedding every year. And yeah, so
Vow renewals.
everybody that watched at home, you didn't come out. It's all right. It's all right.
We see you.
I see you.
You can buy the recording though. You go to the sevenfigure.com website. You can actually get a recording of the content from the main stage over the next 2 days. It's going to be incredible. If you are here or if you're about to arrive at the Hilton here in Salt Lake, we will be doing registration. Should be starting officially right now upstairs. So it's on the second
1 minute
floor.
ago.
Yes. So for everyone here, that's the place to be next. You can go up there, get your bag.
Get your lovely
goodie
swag.
bag, get your swag.
Yeah.
That's a wrap.
Guys, thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you,
Appreciate
everybody.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Later.